This is 5 on 20 News with Edgar Zotov, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Thursday, August 3rd. Let's talk local headlines. Former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio was interviewed on Alex Jones's program InfoWars on Tuesday to discuss his recent conviction of criminal misdemeanor contempt. Arpaio accused his judge of being biased and asked why he was abandoned by the president, who Arpaio supported early on. His support came from Trump's immigration policies, which were center stage during the sheriff's trial. Arpaio was accused of disobeying a judge's order to stop his infamous immigration process that allegedly racially profiled immigrants in Maricopa County. In their interview, Arpaio said that I'm being convicted for honestly trying to enforce the immigration laws that Trump swore during the campaign he would uphold if elected president. Trump said that the campaign trail that he has great respect for Arpaio and thanked him for his support. Arpaio's attorney told InfoWars that the judge in the case, Susan R. Bolton, was so biased that she could have written her opinion before the case even started. He said that the court ignored all of the overwhelming evidence at the trial that exonerated the sheriff. He must have been watching a different trial. Arpaio's attorney argued that no one in the sheriff's department understood the 40-page order to stop the immigration patrols. However, he declined to answer why no members of Arpaio's staff were apparently unable to read or ask questions. Arizona is facing millions of dollars in fines due to a 5-year-long lawsuit alleging that the state failed to carry out medical reforms in its state prisons. Arizona Corrections Director Charles Ryan was berated in court on Tuesday by a judge who described Arizona's efforts to reform its prison medical system as an abject failure. This came 2 years after the department agreed to make changes as part of a settlement of the lawsuit. The court order prohibited retaliation against inmates who participated in class action lawsuit. But U.S. Magistrate David Duncan says that the department disobeyed the order. The case began in 2012 when a lawsuit alleged that the state's prisons didn't meet the basic requirements for providing adequate medical and mental health care to its prisoners. In one case, prison medical staff failed to diagnose an inmate's metastasized cancer, which led to the man's liver enlarging to where his stomach looked like a pregnant woman's belly. Another case involved an inmate that had a history of prostate cancer who had to wait more than 2 years for a biopsy. Yet another case involved a suicidal prisoner who was denied care and ended up killing himself. In October 2014, the case was settled, with state officials agreeing to increase healthcare staffing, offer cancer screenings to certain prisoners, and follow requirements in treating patients with chronic disease. But attorneys representing the inmates said that the state was dragging its feet in actually instituting the changes. They have gone back to court several times to get the court to force the states to follow through on the reforms. One inmate said that he faced reprisal when prison officials tried to make it look like he was the cause of a cell transfer. He said that he was then given a gang member as his new cellmate, who had a reputation for violence. Ryan has been continually criticized while in his role as corrections director. Among other incidents, he was criticized for a 2009 heat-related death of an inmate who was left for nearly 4 hours in an unshaded outdoor holding cell during triple-digit heat. Former Maricopa Sheriff Joe Arpaio is being considered as Ryan's replacement since he has experience in exposing prisoners to unhealthy conditions. But Arpaio just needs to get that whole prison sentence over with. In an opinion piece published in the Wall Street Journal, Arizona Representative Andy Biggs said that the Senate needs to get rid of the filibuster, which requires 60 votes to pass legislation. Biggs said that the filibuster rule gives the opposition party too much say in blocking votes, and that currently 8 Democrats trump the Republican Party. With Republicans and Democrats sharply divided, the filibuster has come up frequently since Trump became president. The Republicans have 52 seats in the Senate, which is enough for a simple majority, but not enough to pass legislation without some Democratic support. Biggs wrote that the House has passed more than 200 bills this year that have gone to die in the Senate due to the filibuster rules. He said that the rule allows senators to play both sides of an issue because they know that they'll never get the vote requirement. This allows filibustering senators to bask in the glory of success without any risk, since they can squash the legislation without having to vote against it. Biggs said that any Republicans who aren't willing to get rid of the filibuster are derailing the president's legislative agenda. Biggs then had to clarify that he meant this is an insult, not a compliment. Tucson public schools are being criticized for secrecy as they refuse to release the names of 4 individuals being considered as the district's next leader. So far, they've only released the first initials of the individuals' names, even though the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that the name and the qualifications of a candidate for a high-level government job is the business of the taxpayers. This comes after TUSD was accused in 2013 of being essentially the same thing when they hired H.T. Sanchez as superintendent. TUSD leaders are putting up roadblocks to releasing the names, claiming that a specific TUSD form needs to be filled out, even though this is not required by state law. And even when highly specific requests for information were made on Tuesday by the Tucson Sentinel, TUSD still relented, claiming that a different form needed to be presented. TUSD claims that they will release the names in another day or so as they plan a series of internal interviews and public meet and greets next week. However, the candidates will need to wear masks during the meet and greets, and will only be addressed as Mr. B, Miss F, and Dr. X. Bazinga! And I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we're undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot us an email to info@creativetucson.org. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of views. So don't be strangers. Now, national and international news. Federal agents raided the home of former Trump campaign chief Paul Manafort yesterday in connection with the Trump-Russia investigation. The raid reportedly took place in July, a month after Manafort registered as a foreign agent. Manafort was found to have worked with the pro-Russian political party that rules Ukraine, where Manafort was paid $17 million. The party was headed by former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Yanukovych was later driven from power after a corruption scandal. In recent years, Manafort also worked for Russian tycoon Oleg Deripaska, another Putin ally. Manafort reportedly approached Deripaska in 2005, promising him influence in the U.S. and elsewhere. Details of the FBI raid are scarce, but it reportedly happened in the pre-dawn hours of July 26. The search warrant was wide-ranging, and the FBI agents were working with special counsel Robert Mueller, who's tasked with investigating purported links between the Trump campaign and Russia. In response to the raid, the president tried to start a war with North Korea. The Middle Eastern nation of Qatar is ending visa requirements for 80 countries in an effort to establish itself as the most open country in the region. People from the US and other countries will now be able to enter Qatar with no paperwork, no visas, and no payment, according to the executive officer of the state-owned Qatari Airlines. The country also included a most favored nation list that lets residents stay in the country for 90 days without a visa. Countries such as Denmark, Australia, Greece, and France found their way on this list, while the US, Russia, and China did not. Rather, Americans will only be able to stay in Qatar for 30 days without a visa. The move was symbolic, as it comes at a time when many nations such as the US are closing their borders to foreigners or making it more difficult to enter the country. Qatar's visa change could help the nation reach its target of hosting 7 million tourists annually by 2030. It also seeks to ease economic troubles inflicted by a blockade against the country by Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, who out diplomatic ties with Qatar last month. This Middle Eastern nation's claim that Qatar was funding terrorist organizations and were helping Iran increase their presence in the region. The president tweeted about Qatar last month, further fanning the flames as he tends to do, by accusing them of funding terrorist groups like ISIS. This despite Qatar hosting over 10,000 American troops in the country. Trump is on a separate list where he needs to provide 18 application forms, biometric data, and a urine sample, which shouldn't be a problem since Trump allegedly has jars of urine lying around the Oval Office. Officials from the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division are warning that the copper mugs used to serve the popular cocktail, the Moscow Mule, could be poisonous. The group released a bulletin last month warning bartenders against serving Moscow Mules in the traditional copper cup. The FDA prohibits copper from coming in direct contact with foods like vinegar, fruit juice, or wine that have a pH level below 6.0. According to the ABD, the pH of a traditional Moscow Mule is well below 6.0 because it's made with lime juice, vodka, and ginger beer. Because of this, the group advised against using copper mugs. However, they said it's okay if the mug is lined with another metal, such as nickel or stainless steel, which is common. In related news, Beefeater gin is still considered poison.
Oh, yes.
The American embassy in Cuba expelled 2 diplomats who are suspected of causing hearing damage to embassy staffers. Embassy spokesman Heather Nart said that the Cubans were asked to leave on May 23rd after Americans in Cuba reported incidents which have caused a variety of physical symptoms that have caused them to leave the island. She said that the first of these incidents occurred in 2016, but did not give any details as to what the symptoms included. The FBI and Diplomatic Security Service are reportedly investigating the matter. But anonymous U.S. officials claim that the symptoms include hearing loss. One person said that the Cuban government placed sonic devices that produced non-audible sound inside or outside the residence of 5 embassy staffers with the intent of deafening them. The official said that the staffers arrived in the country in 2016 and stayed in housing owned and maintained by the Cuban government, which is customary. In the fall, officials said that the diplomats and their spouses began to experience hearing loss so severe that an investigation was launched. The investigation determined that the diplomats were at risk and should leave the country. Some of the people affected are believed to have suffered permanent hearing loss, according to the official. The Cuban government denied any involvement, but the officials became skeptical when Cuban officials began talking loudly and constantly saying, "What?" Tesla is in the process of developing a self-driving truck and may be ready to test soon, according to Reuters. The electric company is testing a prototype for a long-haul electric semi-truck that would be able to drive itself and platoon or travel closely together with other autonomous vehicles. Reuters obtained records from the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles showing that Tesla wishes to test the truck in the state of Nevada, where the company also has battery factories. Tesla is also meeting with California officials to talk about the development of self-driving vehicles. Competitor Uber is also moving in a similar direction, buying the self-driving truck company Otto last year. What remains to be seen is how these self-driving trucks will change the U.S. economy. 3.5 million people are employed as truck drivers in the U.S., and the profession is the most popular in several states. Truck delivery drivers remain one of the most stable careers for the middle class and still offer good wages for those without a college education. On the upside, former truck drivers will form the front line in battling the inevitable robot apocalypse. This was 5 on 20 News with Edgar Zotov. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook accounts for all the latest Creative Tucson content. Feel free to bother us at info@creativetucson.org. Thanks for watching. Also, don't forget to tune in tonight at 6:30 for Zona Politics with Jim Nitzel. Stay creative, Tucson. Those Uber and truck drivers.